Should you do a PhD? Science is like pretty cool. It can also be just a bit boring. But what about the conferences like Bangkok, London, Koudekerke? The supervisors are strange people sometimes. But science can be so cool though, and all the machines you get to work with and the people you get to work with, it's all pretty amazing. So, maybe? So I finished my PhD apart from my defense, which is still coming up. Yay! And I thought I'll just look at it retrospectively and annotate some of the things I enjoyed, some of the things that worry me. So this is not advice, nor is it the top 10 tips. So you know if you're the right fit for a PhD. This is just me rambling about my observations, my views, my concerns. So that means you can also disagree, and that's totally fine. We can have different opinions and still be friends. So to bring some sense into my rambling, I will make use of this highly customizable planning data-driven solution. It is a cardboard box. I wrote down good and not so good and then we'll discuss 3 topics, things that I have written down beforehand. So it's not just me going on forever. So yeah, let's get into it. So the first one is a good one. Let me take it, and it is freedom and opportunities. In my opinion, you have a lot of freedom as a PhD. You get a lot of opportunities to learn stuff, to meet people, to present things, but also you're the final responsible person for your entire project. So you can also just ask yourself a research question and try to go and figure it out, right? That's in the realm of possibilities. And I think that level of independency is not, I don't think, present in that many other jobs, especially at this level. You get to go out to conferences. I've been to Bangkok, to Washington, to London, Koudekerke, of course, the place to be. And that is such a privilege to be able to do those things for work. And also them being quite fun. You also have so much opportunities to speak. I know not everyone is a fan of presenting your data, but that is like weekly presentations if you want to big groups as well. And I also brought my guitars and ukuleles and songs into my presentations. Sure, there's probably people that do not really like it, but I only heard positive things. And yeah, you can just go and do that. So I think that's quite a lot of freedom you get. Finally, also, for me, it was busy. It's a lot of work, a PhD, but you also are very, at least I was in our lab, I was able to plan my own time, right? So if I work very hard one day, or sometimes I would come in the weekend, but I could also just take an afternoon off then another day, and you can just plan that yourself. And I'm aware all of this depends also a lot on who your supervisor is, the financial means of your lab or the culture in your department. But I think overall, even very small, there's a lot of opportunities. Like if you want to learn a technique, you can just go and reach out and ask that person. There's so much opportunity to learn and also to just have fun, right? As I said, I wouldn't really give advice, but a tiny bit of advice here is, for me, is to pursue those opportunities. It's not like they're handed to you, right? So send in an abstract to the conference, even if your data is not fully complete, or ask that lab mate to teach you that cool lab equipment, even though you don't really know how to use it. So pursue those opportunities, even if they are difficult or seem difficult. I think a PhD offers many. So then on to the first, not so good. And I titled this The Lonely Lottery. So I'm not necessarily talking about social loneliness here. I think that's way more important. So I'm more talking about professional loneliness, or maybe the individualistic nature of science. So I said the whole project is based on you. So it stands or falls with what you do. So if you had a bad week, that's your problem. You always have in the back of your mind that it's your fault that you're not doing something, because then it's your fault that you're not succeeding in time, for example. and this can be completely outside of your control. If the machine breaks and it's broken for half a year that you really need, yeah, that's just a bit shitty. You're screwed. It's your project. In another sense is also that you work on a very specific, tiny little minute research part of a thingy that is part of another thingy that is so specialized that sometimes even the person working next to you, like your direct colleague, does not truly understand what you're doing. The nuances of the techniques and the analysis are so specific that they are tailored to each project. That sort of individualistic nature or that lonely nature is also further emphasized, I think, by the fact that everything that determines your success in science is based on your name, right? Your papers, your abstract, your grants, it's all based on you, on your name. So you do it alone, even though we all know science is based on a lot of people's work. But the output is often tied to a single person. That number that determines your success, that your name is on all these papers, is a bit of a lottery. Whether you have a good selling point, whether your topic is trendy, whether your supervisor knows someone on the committee, whether your supervisor is on the committee, whether it's work that was done previously by one of your predecessors, whether the antibody you bought from a company actually just completely doesn't work, even though the company assures you that it does work, or whether you have a collaborator that after 2 years of working together just decides, well, I'm going somewhere else, so you just figure it out. And all these things massively impact your research, and there's not really much you can do about it. And I think it also makes it difficult to feel pride. This is maybe personal, but let's say your paper gets accepted. Then people are like, you did a really good job. You wrote a nice abstract or a nice rebuttal. But if your paper isn't accepted, then maybe the editor just didn't think it was novel enough, or maybe the journal is going a different direction. So that's just out of your control. But that also works the other way around, right? So if my paper was accepted, maybe the editor just liked mass spec. And if I didn't get it, maybe the paper was very good, but the editor just hated endothelial cells. Like, it makes it very difficult to determine what is good and what isn't. And the only way you can do that is then to have belief or trust in yourself that what you do is good work. I think the problem there lies that if that's the only reason things are good, and then people that are successful just get reinforced that how they do things is the right way. And we'll get to that in another point. So to end this segment, I do not think it's just luck that determines whether you have a successful PhD or not. Some people are just better suited to do one than others. They're better dealing with setbacks, they're more creative, they try many different things. I would even say that anything that is worth doing comes with uncertainty, comes with setbacks that you have to surpass. However, I do think that the support that PhDs get when they hit patches of bad luck or when things aren't going their way is vastly different among supervisors, and in many cases just lacking. I think that's something that can be better. Next point. The people. It's good. It's very good. Working in the academia, to me, is working together with a whole range of like-minded people, nerds who like weird, nerdy stuff, who get excited by similar things as you, who know the struggles that you've been through because they all work in academia, and who are just fun to be around. And in 90% of the cases, 95%, 99% of the cases are just a very helpful community. People get excited by science, and they also get excited by their own science. So if you ask them for help, they will help you, right? People, and also talked about conferences, but you can just go to a conference and then be at your poster and talk to someone that you have never met from a completely different side of the world, and you can just bond over being excited by the same silly little cells that you both work on. I mean, that is, I think, really cool. I think it's also just good for science, right? We are all super duper specialized in our own little areas, but if you can connect with each other and let's say you learn from each other, I think that is truly where the greatest advances are made. And the scientific community is very open to those things. I think it's, overall, it's just a very helpful community. And I also can give examples, like in the mass spec world, we don't really like Western blots, right? Because we do 8,000 of them at a time. So I needed to learn how to do Western blots because it's the classical reviewer question. Now we don't do them in our lab, so I went to a colleague from a different lab, two colleagues actually, and the next day we were already doing a Western blot together so I can learn. And then they also had some extra antibodies and I asked if I could borrow them. They were like, sure, go for it. Of course you can borrow them. Yeah, as I said, very helpful. The last paper I wrote, we had to do a rebuttal and it's at the end of my PhD, so we had to get moving, right? Ask someone to do a cell death essay. Of course they do one. And Eliza, different person. Within a couple of weeks, we had the whole rebuttal written with like 3 new experiments just because everyone wanted to help. And I think if you're just friendly and you ask, everyone wants to help. And the other way around, it works the same. I actually also get a lot of joy when someone asks me to help them and I'm able to help them with something. Like I will almost always say yes, because I mean, that's just a good feeling, right? To help another person. And this is not just limited to the PhDs. I think almost everyone in academia, from postdocs, technicians to PIs and professors, they are very friendly and they all want, if you're just excited about something, curious about something, they will always just help you in some way. And I think that's just such a great thing about, well, doing a PhD, but maybe science as a whole or academia as a whole. This community, the friendliness and helpfulness of other people. On to the next not so good point on our list, and it is conservative. Conservative. Science itself moves fast. Techniques move fast. Methods move fast. The people around science move very slowly. And this is probably the most controversial point I will talk about, but I think that has a lot to do. The people that are there for multiple years, that supervise other people, and that shape how science is executed, are group leaders or PIs. They are people with a very strong view on how things should be done, how experiments should be done, how writing should be done, how supervision should be done, how science as a whole should be done. So if you're in that view, I think everything is fine, you can work together great. If you're outside that view, it is very difficult for them to understand. Even taking things personally, quite quickly. And that makes it very difficult to change something. I think if you are outside or you make a statement or you do something different, a PI will always explain to you how that is wrong or different from things how they should be done. But if somehow fail to realize, or maybe just doesn't come across, that it is wrong according to their view of how things should be done. And they are successful, right? They were successful in how they did things. They were successful in their job, doing exactly how they have been doing. But things change. People change. I think those views on how things should be done lead to a complete disconnect between what is happening on a PhD and what is happening on a PI level. And I think I have seen my fair share of very unjust and very unfair things. And a lot of times that's just normal. Like, why is it normal that all PhDs that are not finished at 4 years, how do you even get to the point that the 4 years are like, oh shit, you are not finished? How is it possible that the PI can just go, yeah, you just work in your free time, just finish it? I don't know, take some allowance from the government. That's like, what? Why is there no responsibility of the PI to make sure that they finish in time? Like, why is this normal? Like, I am genuinely curious as a PI, where's the respect to the person you have worked with for the past 4 years? I'm not an angry, disgruntled PhD student, but it makes me very angry. It seems when push comes to shove, a PI will put the results here and the human being below that. And I don't really understand it. There's a mismatch there because I will also say that most PIs and most supervisors and most group leaders care for their PhDs. They want their PhD student to succeed. They want them to be proud of their work. And again, this is my opinion. I've recorded this a lot of times now because even I am afraid now, after I'm done, that people will take this personal. Even though I think it's such an important topic that I think there's so many, virtually any PhD I've talked to, that relation just doesn't completely work. This seems, due to lack of change, this seems conservative. So after that heavy controversial point, that I'm not sure if I even leave in, let's just move on to the final good point. Science is cool. Science is cool. Like really cool. I think curiosity is human nature. And for me, that's, let's say, cellular sciences or processes. And like if you even take like a very simple process like this, moving my finger up and down, it looks a bit weird. But just take a moment and try to fathom what is happening here. All these cells that need their nutrients, all the proteins that are moving, all the cells that are stretching up and down, like all the signals that are going from my finger to my brain and back again. And then all the oxygen that is transported to this, all my blood vessels that turn wider. Again, all the proteins that are being broken down to generate energy, all the other proteins. Like, it is unfathomable what is happening here. And it's such a simple movement. And that, like, how that works, let alone how this works. And then, as tiny as it may be, adding something to that puzzle on how you work. Wow, that is just really cool, right? That is just really cool that you can figure that out. And also more practical, I work on endothelial cells. So we get our endothelial cells from the blood of a donor, and then you grow them in a dish, and then they are just happily growing, doing that thing. You add something to it, you see how they respond. Like, what? And then you try to figure out how and why. And it just comes out of your body, and also try to translate then how what's happening in here is happening in me. It's happening right now. Those are these cells that I look at that are in the blood vessels I see. Like, how do you even explain that? I really enjoy doing it, as you can tell. And also on a more professional level, like I do something very minute, and probably it will not affect you anyway at all ever. But I'm probably like, well, let's say, I'm not exaggerating, probably like less than 100 people that do what I do in this entire world. I can actually call myself an expert on a very tiny minute thing, but I mean, like I'm at the forefront of human knowledge. You sometimes forget it if you have to do it every day and it's just boring and it's just a job that you do, but wait, like that is, I mean, that's why I do what I do, but it is near unfathomable how it works, and then to sort of figure out how it works, even a tiny bit. Science is just very cool. I think sometimes, I mean, take it or leave it. Yeah, I need to take a moment and forget about the deadlines and the stress and the rebuttal and the reviewers and blah, blah, blah. Will I finish in time? Take a moment to block all of that out, like almost go into meditation and think about what it is that you're doing, step by step, from isolation to cell, to chemicals, to antibodies, to microscope, mass specs, like how that all is so amazing to work with, right? And then you also get to do it with a lot of other people who also think that's pretty cool. So yeah, a big thumbs up for me on Science is Cool. And then the final point, boring and negative. The final point on the list, boring and negative. I just told you science was really cool, but if you do it every single day, it gets normal. And science is also just a lot of repeating stuff. Doing the same thing week in, week out. Whether you do cell culture or analysis or Western blots, a lot of the times you do the same things. And then consider that also things can just go wrong for a long period of time, no idea why. That sucks out of the fun. And you sort of lose that spark that's, well, is in the science is cool. And I think we do very little to nurture that spark, that fun. I think most focus in science, in doing science, is focused on selling your science, in trying to convince others that it's worth it. And you do a lot of that during your work as a PhD as well. A lot of time is lost or is spent on writing the manuscript or the abstract or a presentation in such a way that you are convincing the other that it is good enough or something, or that they will accept it, or that they will think that it's worth that you spend time and money on it. I don't think that's really why I started to do science. And if I look then forward to the postdocs who are aspiring to be PIs, they are also, it doesn't become less, this selling. No, I think it becomes more. They're just writing grants for the majority of their time because they need the money. I mean, I get it. And I think we focus a lot on the selling, but it's sort of presumed that you also have fun and that it is fun what you're doing. And you should always be able to fall back that, you get joy about what you do. But there is very little time spent on nurturing that fun or emphasizing that joy. And I get it, no job is always fun, but for some reason we are focused so much on this critical, like, you have to prepare to defend what you do. You have to convince others that it's worth it. It's very little about the curiosity and the drive and just the sheer, I want to figure this out. And what we get back is a lot of negativity. I'm not sure if it's jealousy, if it's like critical, is like as seen as smart, or breaking someone down is the way to build someone up. I don't know. I don't really care. Scientists are so very negative about other people's science, about the presentations, about the proposals, how they get the money, which leaves very little room for the naive, curious, I want to try something. Everything has to be this perfect story that has no holes. This is maybe my view. Maybe at this point, maybe later, I'll think about it differently. But my observations do worry me in a way. So if I look at all the PhDs that I've seen, I know like 3 of them that continue in academia or wanted to continue in academia as a postdoc. And these are not just the people that had a very bad experience in a PhD. These are also very bright people, very good tutors, very smart people, people that dreamed of becoming a PI, but were just flattened out by the system that we have created for some reason. And I think it's due to multiple points. And some points you cannot change, those are just part of science and on the job. But I think there's lots of things that can be changed. So I've been filming for so long that my camera actually overheated. But I want to end on a final note. So, is there a way to change this? Is there a way? What do we change? I don't really know. I think it is changeable. I think it's also a part of just the world as it is at the moment that also bleeds through into science. But we need to get rid of this disconnect between the PhDs and the PIs. We need to get rid of this selling of our science. I need to increase the positivity and the optimism and the curiosity and just the naivety of doing research and trying and leaving space from that, and also giving attention to it instead of giving only attention to how to make the perfect presentation. And I think as supervisors and PIs have a large part in this because they are the stable factors that are there for multiple years. And also for the PhDs themselves, there to speak up, right? If there's a problem and you never talk about it, then no one will ever be able to change anything. And it is difficult. I get that. I really get that, to speak up against the person that has all the power over you. But I think dare to challenge, how small or big as it is. Because if we all do not do anything and we all just worry about our own research and we all do exactly as we did before us, well, I think we're just due a bit of change, the other direction of that we're heading in. So should you do a PhD? Well, maybe. There's fun parts to it. There's not so fun parts to it. I look back to my PhD very positively. I had quite a successful one, I think. I had nice supervisors. I got lots of opportunities. But yeah, it is an interesting job with some of the things. And I don't know if they'll ever change. And so if you want to do one and you really want my advice, ask questions. Get a feel for how the project is going, for what the group is doing. Try to get a feel of your supervisors and your colleagues. And then you also never know. I mean, that's with any job and anything. And then if you start it and you really are not enjoying it, you can always just stop. I think that's better than just continuing for 4 years. But yeah, that's easy to say for me, of course. That was a very rambling. I have no idea if I'll ever use this footage. I'm not even sure if this is fun at all, or useful, or something. But if you're watching this right now and you made it all the way to the end of my rambling, and I've decided to upload it, I will say, take care of yourself, take care of the people around you, and have a wonderful day.